Welcome to the third dimension. The UN Security Council has passed a US resolution backing President Biden's Gaza ceasefire plan, part of an American-led effort to increase pressure on Israel and Hamas to end the war, in which tens of thousands have died. The United Nations resolution was non-binding, but its adoption will increase pressure on both sides to respond positively to the US proposal. After 9 months of fighting and faltering negotiations to end the conflict, Biden has thrown his weight behind the plan, which comes at what he described as a critical moment to end the bloodshed. The Israeli government did not immediately respond to the resolution, although the US officials have insisted Biden's plan was drafted and approved by the Israel War Cabinet. Hamas responded to the US-backed ceasefire proposal. While expressing support for the broad outlines of the plan, the Palestinian resistance group submitted a few remarks aimed at aligning the proposal with its position. The deal, if agreed, is supposed to unfold in 3 phases. Israel and Hamas generally agree to the conditions stipulated under Phase 1, but they are at odds over how they officially end the war. Despite the initial optimism about the deal, observers now believe those disagreements could upend the entire pact. To discuss this topic, joins me from Ramallah, Dimitri Diliani. Mr. Diliani is a senior member of Fatah Revolutionary Council and the spokesperson of Fatah Reformist Democratic Faction. Mr. Diliani, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Now, 228 days since the Israeli war started on Gaza, more than 37,000 Palestinians have been killed in this war. Okay? There is no safe place in Gaza. What is your take on this?
The state of Israel, with the support of its people, is going through with this genocide, being assisted directly by major powers in the world like the United States of America, like the UK, Germany, and others. So with the world's complicity and lack of political will to put an end to this genocide, the state of Israel is going through with it, despite the fact that continuing with this genocide on the personal political level contradicts the interest of President Joe Biden and the Biden administration and the Democratic Party in general in the United States of America. But at the same time, the continuation of the genocide falls right in on the lap of Benjamin Netanyahu as a way to save his own political career and also his partners in the coalition. So it is so far that the world hasn't showed enough political will to stop this genocide, and most definitely the street in the state of Israel is just as genocidal as its government, and the government is just going through with with impunity, as we have seen so far.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if we move, to President Biden's ceasefire plan, Mr. Diliani, which was later backed by the United Nations Security Council. We know that the United States has vetoed 3 prior UN resolutions on Gaza. The question is, what has changed now?
Well, actually, nothing has changed because Biden is looking for a political victory for himself. Biden doesn't want a ceasefire through the United Nations, where everybody can share such a victory. Biden wants to be the champion right before his own elections in November. That's why, even though he vetoes ceasefire or stopping the genocide in the Security Council, and at the same time promotes such a plan unilaterally. But this is not the whole story. The story goes as follows, that he is not even serious with that. Because at the time that he is launching this initiative of ceasefire, he is continuously supplying the state of Israel with weapons to kill women and children in Gaza. So he is actually signaling practically that he's not serious about this, and his plan is merely political ploy just to kind of save him some votes in the future. And as we know, and he knows as well, that 70% of Democratic voters in the United States aged between 18 and 35 disagree strongly with his support to the state of Israel and demand a ceasefire immediately. So he kind of throws this bone through this initiative, and at the same time, he is still supplying the state of Israel with political impunity through veto and material support through financial and weapons straight to the state of Israel. And we have to understand and remember that Biden himself went around the Congress over 100 times through this 8-month period of war, of genocide, to get weapons without any delay to the state of Israel, and to take credit for that and not to share credit with his own Congress even. But this has backfired in terms of popular support for him. And I believe that Joe Biden will go down in history with the shame of the Palestinian children's blood on his hands, and he will go down because of his complicity in Israel's genocide in Gaza.
Okay. Now, if we dig deeply, Mr. Diliani, on the deal itself, okay, is it, first of all, or in the first place, is it a U.S. plan or an Israeli plan?
Well, this plan is the same plan taking different shapes for now way too long, for many months. First, it came out as an Egyptian plan. Then it came out as an Egyptian plan, which Israel has supported. Then 10 days after that, Hamas supported. Then that was, I'm talking about the period in towards the end of April, beginning of May. And then when Hamas agreed to it, Israel tracked its word and rejected it again. And then it came out in a speech of Biden, and it was introduced. By the way, Hamas took this initiative extremely well and wisely, and they basically gave a positive response to it. On the other hand, the initial response from the Prime Minister of Israel's office, Netanyahu's office, was very vague. I mean, it was just, you couldn't read through what is their position. But then a few hours after that, cabinet ministers in his government, with his okay, of course, because they didn't stop him, they didn't place a gag order, they basically shot it down and rejected the plan and the Biden initiative, while Hamas took few days to respond with details, positively with details, which made put the United States of America and Netanyahu in a bad position and on the world stage as the people that basically rejected and not pushed enough in case of the United States, and for Israel rejected the initiative, until Blinken flat out lied once, more than one time, when he said that Hamas actually rejected this plan, which is not true. And anybody with the 2-cent brain can read the positive take of Hamas on this initiative, while the flat out rejection by the Israeli government. But Blinken, who is, we know, a Zionist ideologue, as he admitted, with special family ties to the state of Israel, which makes him extremely biased and more Zionist than or just as much as cabinet members. And he was member of the war cabinet in the state of Israel for quite some time. So he just totally ignored the fact that Hamas dealt with it positively while Israel rejected it. And he lied, saying on multiple TV interviews that Hamas had rejected that, which shows that this is only a political show for Biden to kind of save face, and it has failed. Look, it's very simple.
Yeah.
Unless the United States has concrete political will to stop the genocide in Gaza, the genocide in Gaza will go on. And as long as Biden thinks that he is smarter than his own voters in his own party, he will continue to fail to make a change and save his own presidency. So the only way out, clear way out, is for the United States of America and allies to stop sending weapons to the state of Israel and stop being complicit in the genocide and stop providing impunity to the war criminal state of Israel on the world stage.
Yeah, okay. So you raised an interesting point, Mr. Diliani, that the Israeli response to the resolution was quite vague, okay? And it was quite strange that within the phrasing itself of the resolution, okay, U.S. officials repeatedly insisted that Israel has approved it. You see? So,
yeah, well, this is flat out lie, because the Israeli government, the members of the cabinet were very clear in rejecting the initiative on TV stations, on American TV stations, in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, in the Jerusalem Post, in Haaretz, in Israel Hayom, in all these newspapers. They were flat out, they were straight up rejecting this initiative. And even to go further, they have threatened Netanyahu, if he shows some leniency, not even agreeing with this, some leniency, they will dissolve the coalition, dissolve the government. And of course, that scared Netanyahu, who, even though initially his response was vague, but later stages, he himself also de facto rejected the initiative by rejecting the whole idea of seizing the genocide in Gaza. He just does not believe, and he said that more than one time, even after the initiative, that he truly believes that this war must go on. This is a rejection, a clear rejection of the initiative. So we have Netanyahu, with first being vague for an hour or two, then rejecting the initiative, cabinet members of Israel rejecting the initiative, Hamas taking it, responding positively, and furthermore going the extra step and putting some details to it in writing to make it work. And the United States choose to ignore all this and say that, well, Hamas rejected that, which is a flat out lie. I mean, anybody can read, anybody has Google, can see that Blinken mainly is a big liar behind this.
Okay. Now, if we just move to the humanitarian crisis, Mr. Diliani, and the United Nations agencies have frequently warned that Gaza witnesses what we call famine conditions like. The question is, for how long the world will watch this happen with no intervention to stop it?
I believe that the world is complicit to a large extent in this genocide. The world has put definitions to genocide, and the Genocide Convention is clear, stating that preventing humanitarian aid flow to war zones is a form of genocide to civilians. And it's very clear that Israel is fitting the classic description of genocide, not only by carpeting bombing residential areas and hospitals and churches and mosques, but also through cutting off humanitarian aid, with the clear intent that was expressed on TV stations, many TV stations, by cabinet members and decision makers in the Israeli government, especially the Minister of War, who simply said that they will cut, before they cut off, that they will cut off everything, which means intent is there and easy to prove. That's what makes South Africa's case in the ICGs is kind of clear cut for us, but it's going to take time. At any rate, what I'm saying is that the world is complicit, and I believe that in this year of elections in Europe and the United States, people who think that do not have a voice, that they do not have a say, elections is the time when you practice your right to determine how the affairs of your country come about, how your country stands in complicit or non-complicit to genocide. And it's very clear, if you want to play a role, any voter out there in Europe, in the United States, don't vote for any human being that was complicit to the genocide, defended the genocide, provided weapons for the murder of Palestinian children in Gaza.
Yeah.
All this these are decisions made by ordinary folks around the world. Yeah. And you don't have to be a politician, you don't have to be rich. All you have to do, go to the voting booth and don't vote. Vote for whoever opposes the genocide. Vote for whoever opposes the murder of women and children in Gaza.
Yeah.
Then you can make a change in the policy. And all these complicit in genocide war criminals around the world will be sitting home. They will be out of a job. Yeah. Why? Because of ordinary people upholding humanitarian moral values.
Yeah.
And teaching the politicians how they also should respect humanitarian human values and human life, or else they will be out of a job. And this message, I hope, reaches as many people as possible in countries that do have elections, especially in Europe and most definitely the United States of America.
Yeah, okay. So Israel is not only preventing aid from entering Gaza, Mr. Diliani, but also journalists. And today in your press release, you raised that issue. The question is, what can be done to ensure that Gaza is not cut from the eyes of the world?
Well, as long as people in Gaza, if we have Palestinian journalists in Gaza, even though over 130 of them were killed, murdered by the Israeli army, many of their families were targeted and killed deliberately, but they are still working, they are still carrying on with the message, which is a heroic job that they all have been doing for the past 8 months, and much salute to them. And I believe that they are true heroes carrying out the truth of the Palestinian people to the world. Also, you have social media activists, younger people with just a phone, getting on TikTok, getting on X, getting on Facebook, getting on Twitter, well, whatever it is, Instagram, whatever it is, they are, they are bringing the message out there. Yes, mainstream Western media is complicit. Yeah. And if you watch some TV stations, and I don't mind mentioning CNN, NBC, BBC, ABC, all these big mainstream corporate media and government media, in case of the BBC and others, all of these, they are complicit 100% with covering up the genocide. And they always try to make this appear as if it's a war, even though this is the most documented genocide in the world. This is not a war at all. Israel is just killing civilians. And they try to manipulate it by dehumanizing the Palestinian people, so it would be okay when they say at the end of the news piece that so many Palestinians were killed. In other words, what they do is at the beginning of the news piece, they would dehumanize the Palestinian people, reinforce this message they've been doing for decades, basically. And towards the end of the news piece, when they say so many Palestinians were killed, they don't mention that these are civilians. They don't mention that 70% of them are women and children. They don't mention that they were sleeping in their homes when they were bombed to death. They don't mention that they were probably sick in hospitals when the hospital was bombed, or the school they were in was bombed. They don't mention any of that. They just mention a number.
Yeah.
So with people receiving the dehumanizing reinforcement, and it would be much easier to accept that there are death at the end for the dehumanized. So this is one way that mainstream Western media plays the role of complicity to cover up, just to make sure people are calm enough to let and give chance for the politicians to keep their complicity and impunity provided for the state of Israel. That's why social media is extremely important. That's why people's vote is extremely important, just to make the point that this is not acceptable on the human being's level. Just being a human being, you should not accept the murder of children, women, and civilians in general by such large proportions that is unheard of in the past 100 years of war. There have been more, the percentage of civilians to fighters being killed by the state of Israel actually surpasses 94%. 94% civilians, as opposed to 6% militants, suspected militants. We don't even know that for sure. And these numbers are the Israeli numbers. So we expect civilians to be even more than that. But this is a classic case of genocide. This is the most documented genocide in history. And every human being has a responsibility to stop this crime against humanity.
Okay. Now, a final point, if you may, Mr. Diliani. Do you think Gaza will see peace soon?
Most definitely I can see it, but I do not know the definition of soon. Would this region see any peace soon? Because I do not believe that the whole Middle East is living in peace, and the main reason for that is the militant, expansionary, colonialist nature of the state of Israel that rejects to be part of this world and rejects to be a natural part of this world, and plays the role of the warrior, constantly instigator and colonialist expansionist. This is not acceptable, and I believe that the state of Israel itself has failed through this policy, because, as you know, one of the most important things or goals for any government or country to achieve is peace for its citizens. And Israel, because of its erratic behavior, genocidal behavior, expansionist, colonialist nature, hasn't been able to provide security for its neighbors, and hasn't caused security for its citizens, nor has it caused security for its neighbors. So that's why I believe that until the Israeli people, since this is a Jewish-only democracy, until the Israeli Jews realize that the only way to live in peace is to let others live in peace, and the only way to live in secure borders is to give others, the state of Palestine, secure borders, then this thing will continue. And us as Palestinians, we have survived over 40 invaders throughout our history. And if you think that the state of Israel will be the end of us, you have to think twice. We are here, we were here, we will remain here. And if anybody passes by, it's not us, it's the invaders usually.
I'm afraid we have to leave it there, Mr. Diliani. Thank you so much for your time and insights, and thank you for talking to Yemen Today TV.
Go ahead.
That's all for this time. See you next week with a new edition of The Third Dimension.